right, everybody, welcome out here on this beautiful Tuesday. Well, at least hopefully it's beautiful where you're at. It's gorgeous, but freezing here. How about for you, David?
It's not as cold as you would think for February in Maryland, but I mean we're in like the 40s. It's not,
Oh, that's not too bad. That's
yeah, it's
not
not
too
terrible.
bad. Gorgeous day then. That's good.
Yeah,
Well, so I appreciate everybody that's joined us today and taking some time out of their day to learn from David and his experience and what he's doing. Just as a brief introduction, my name is Matt Hicken. I'm the Senior Vice President of Client Success here at Bill Good Marketing. I've been working in this industry for about 22 years. 14 of those years, I worked actually in the industry in an advisor's office. So very familiar with how all these things go. You'll find that as we talk, we'll be asking for questions and definitely love to answer those questions for you. I think between David and I would be able to answer anything you have. So that said, let me introduce David, because David is a phenomenal individual. We were just talking before this broadcast. It seems like it hasn't been that long, but it's now coming up on at least a couple of years, right?
yeah. I think April, will be
Yeah.
2 years. April will be 2 years.
Yeah, so this is but it's been a phenomenal relationship with David, doing a phenomenal job out there in Maryland. Um, so thank you, David, for taking some time out of your day to join us for this. And why don't you give us a brief introduction to you, how long you've been in the business, and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So first of all, I'm like thrilled that you would even think of me for asking me here. So thank you for that. So I've been in the business. I graduated college in 2008 from Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania. I have a degree in economics, major, business minor. I then started my first job at Smith Barney, which, as we all know, is now Morgan Stanley. Uh, and at that time, I was in an administrative role. And the idea was to teach me the business. I could then be joined up with like a 30-year veteran type of thing,
Mhm.
and then potentially take over his book, was all these things I was told. But they gave me 6 months and then they're like, all right, then you could be an advisor. 6 months goes by and nothing changes.
Yeah.
Um, so another 6 months or another, 3 months go by. Morgan Stanley's then purchased Smith Barney. The manager who made those promises to me couldn't keep him anymore because he wasn't in his job anymore.
Yeah.
So I ended up heading out and I moved over to, at the time, it was AXA. And we were able to start our own team on an independent platform, which is super exciting. And I've been here ever since.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's fascinating about the your story and kind of upbringing in the industry is so many other advisors experience that. So again, for those that are maybe in that moment or experiencing that or have experienced that, you can get out. There's ways to move on and move upward, and we'll talk about that in a second. So I do. If you haven't heard of Bill Good Marketing, just real quick, again, if this was a broadcast. I mean, if this was the Super Bowl, became that you'd be watching a good few hours of commercials. But I'm just going to give you a couple minutes, right? And that is, so Bill Good Marketing. What we do is our promise to advisors that we work with is we're going to double your business or help you work half as much while still making the same amount. Usually, the first response I get to that is, "Hey, can I do both?" Yeah, yeah, it just takes the right processes and systems, right? And we can help you put those together using a customized strategy plan, a lot of training for you, your team, a lot of documentation, content available to use. We have our own CRM that we also use to help you automate the systems and processes that will help you put into place. But I can't stress enough the content. There's a lot of providers out there. I will say we've been out there the longest as a content provider, and honestly, again, having worked in the industry and seen a lot of the content out there, still think the best content comes from Bill Good Marketing. Just phenomenal job at building relationships. So definitely, if you're looking for any of those things, that's something that we can help you with. Couple things about David before we get into some important stuff for David. Well, actually, before we get into that, I do want to talk about, and this is going to make me jump through a whole bunch of slides about you, David, and we'll come back to this. But stay to the end, right? This is actually a pretty amazing document that we're going to offer you. If you'll stay to the end and answer a brief survey, then you'll be able to get this goodie bag, and it's the Seminar Success Zone. This is something that Bill has developed over decades, working with advisors all over the country in the best way to run seminars. There of course are other potential methods, but these statistics, and that's what this document goes through, the key statistics to have a successful ROI on your seminars. This is what we're going to talk about with David today, are these items. So if you want this document, stay to the end, answer the brief question there, and then we'll get you this, you'll be able to download this document. So let's go back, because let's not do this whole thing again. David, we were talking at the beginning before we started the broadcast, and this is what's important, something that's very important to me, and that is when I talk to advisors all across the country to help them develop their business plan, the first thing I try to find is, why? What's your why? I mean, it's the same thing you do with clients, right? What is their why? How are you going to help solve that overall? Why are they investing? Why are they, looking at their finances? Why are they trying to work with an advisor? These are questions you need to answer in your sales cycle. But so for you, David, what is your why? Why are you in this business? What drives you?
So first of all, I'm very competitive, as you know,
Yeah.
but so it goes back a long way. Like when I was growing up, my parents split at an early age before I can even remember, honestly. Um, and so I didn't really have a relationship with my dad. Mostly it was just my mom. um, but because of that, my mom didn't have big income at all. I mean, I think we all know that teachers don't make a ton of money. She was a teacher's assistant for years, and you know that they make less than that, obviously.
Mm.
So there were times that were really tough. She did everything that she could to make us, not have a lot of wants. And she was like, what she did with what she had was amazing. In saying that, it wasn't one of those things where, we really had much. And so when I was growing up, I played sports and, I had fun and doing all that kind of thing. But when I got to like high school time frame, there were a bunch of coaches and they were just like, oh yeah, you're not good enough to do this, so you're not going to be there. And they wouldn't use those exact words, but I wasn't stupid and I knew what they were trying to say. And so when that happened, I immediately, just thought in the back of my mind, like, hey, I'm going to prove these guys wrong one of these days. Well, what ended up happening is I went to small school, Gettysburg College, as I mentioned, and I wanted to do math, and I had a teacher. First of all, there was this class called abstract mathematics, math with no numbers. After a week and a half, the teacher said, yeah, you need to get out of this class. You're just not going to make it. And so that we're clear, I got out of the class and I moved on to economics, which I think was the best decision I probably ever made in my life, or at least one of them besides marrying my wife.
Yeah.
Anyway, so did that, and that worked out really well. But I got that job out of college at Smith Barney, and the guy who hired me, I didn't say this earlier, but the guy who hired me, he actually, there's this other guy named Matt in a branch that was like a sister branch to where we were in PA at the time, and he was a young guy. He was in his late 20s. I was in my early 20s at the time, and he had a big book of business that he was able to accumulate. And the whole response to me was, we're going to keep you in this administrative role because you're not everyone's Matt. So you're going to say, and so that was just like replicating over and over from the time I was in high school till then. So to me, this is like, there are things that I want to do along the way, but to me, this is a very personal thing that some of the other people, they may never see it, but it is personal satisfaction in my mind, knowing that they were always wrong. And that makes me really happy and gives me a smile. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, to me, that's awesome. And I bring this up and I have you highlight that story because there's so many advisors I talk to, and we try to implement the same systems and processes you have, but without that like motivation, that willingness to be like, no, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. There's so many that don't. So, hey, if this is motivation for you, you're not going to get there unless you put these things in place. You're not going to get there. So you have to do it all and really drive yourself forward. So I do think that's a key piece to everything that you've had as far as success goes, and that's completely driven by you. And we had this up on the screen. I took it down just because I prefer not to have words up on the screen, and that's not the presentation. It's David here. But you brought in 17 new households coming from 3 different pipelines. That's 34 million in assets under management and growth last year. We're closing in on 200 million in AUM. As you just said, this is just like the start. This is not the end. We're not getting comfortable, right?
I'm so excited about what the future holds. Like I feel like this is legitimized, but yeah, I don't see an end. I'll put it that way at the moment.
Yeah. Good. Awesome. So, and we got this comments in the Q&A, and I knew Cindy, but she said lots of men were saying the same thing to me beginning in 1990, and she's outlasted most of them. I absolutely love that. And
I
it's
mean,
so well learned, Sydney. Knowing you, I know that's true. That's awesome. So, way to go. So to me, this is the key, right? Whatever your driving force is, take that, run with it. Prove all these other people wrong. But let's break this down. So the 3 key channels, right? So what are your 3 key channels where new business is coming from?
well, I spent a lot of time with clients.
Mhm.
We do everything that you guys tell us to do, which has been wonderful. The monthly drip letters, the 90-day no contacts, just that sort of thing. It has resulted in more trust and more or stronger relationships with those people than I ever thought could happen in a business setting, which is the
Good.
neatest thing ever. Um, I just went out to Chicago, I guess, last week on Thursday. It's this one client of mine, really good client of mine. We went out and we got, I spent the day with him in his office. We went out to, he knows that I love deep dish Chicago pizza, like authentic Chicago pizza. And you can probably see that in my neck that I like that. But I say that because he brought me out. There's this one place that I really like. He's like, no, David, you got to try this. His name's Chris. So he brought me out with his wife to a different place. The parent company is called La Briola. I forget what the actual name of the restaurant is, but nevertheless, we were out there and we didn't have drinks or anything, but we were literally at dinner for like 2 hours, just hanging out and talking and chatting it up and everything. They both gave me like big hugs when we were all done and everything. It was like the best ever. But that's an example of somebody who has really built a strong bond with me over time just because of all the things that it's just as simple as just you're
Mhm.
doing it. So it's really, really cool. And because of that, new client assets have been a tremendous strength. Referrals, naturally, because you're in front
Mhm.
of them all the time. Shock,
Good.
surprise. Um, we have done seminars now for the past 13 months. And then we've also, and I still continue to do this. There are other like newer advisors or whatnot that come into the firm every once in a while. And I'll run joint meetings with them for folks that they cold call. I had one of those today as an example.
Mhm.
So I would kind of say that the referrals and clients kind of fall into the same category to an extent.
Yeah.
I'd put the cold calling in a separate one, and then I put those seminars in the last one. I don't really do as much cold calling. I don't cold call at all, but I don't really do as much cold calling business as I've done in years past. Because truth is, I don't want to, and I don't have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. No, I get that, right? So with the 3 that we have there, so referrals, obviously new assets from existing clients, and if we could probably say 4 with that counting one, and then referrals and introductions from existing clients, cold calling, and then seminars. So let's dive into those because there are certain things. What I found, most advisors do grow their business by referrals from existing clients. But did you find after implementing some of the things we talked about, did the number of referrals increase, stay the same, increase in quality? Did anything change in that for you?
Oh yeah, both. I mean, before we started working together, I was lucky to get a referral or 2 a year. Lucky.
Yeah.
Now getting, you know, the amount of acquired clients by it. I've probably had double or triple that amount in actual referrals given over the course of a year. But the only reason why they're not current clients is because we had an initial conversation and they weren't qualified. Uh,
Mhm.
Almost every time, and I've been very fortunate, knock on wood, that that continues, but almost every time that I'm introduced to somebody that's qualified from an existing relationship, because that bond is so strong from those clients, um, they're asking what they need to do to get me the money, which is the funniest thing. But that's how it's kind of been.
Oh, definitely. So obviously, if for those listening, I mean, I know what it's entailed and all that, but you're describing this wonderful relationship you have with your clients. As far as your time is concerned, how much of your day would you, or even week, if we measure it that way, would you say is spent with existing clients versus prospects, versus marketing and other administrative type of things?
So for me personally, or for the whole team? Because
For you personally.
okay, for me personally, all my time spent with existing clients are in meetings themselves. Um, I have clients that are local. I have clients that are, as I mentioned, across the country in some cases. Um, do a lot of video calls that allows me to be efficient and not worry about travel time. It's been extremely helpful. Or they'll come to my office because you know what? If I'm driving places, I don't have the schedule and the time of the day. And if they want to meet with me, then they can come see me or turn their computer on. Um, and it works great. So with that, I probably spend, I would say, and this is crazy to me, but I probably would spend close to 70% of my time focusing on existing clients,
Mhm.
with the active, like the marketing activities and things like that. We talk about seminars and whatnot. We use a service, we use leading response.
Mhm.
I mean, that was one of the best referrals that you guys have ever given me, by the way. Holy cow, they're good.
Good.
Uh, and their invitations are beautiful and it work out. So um, that's an expense, but at the end of the day, it's something that has been wonderful and it's business.
Mhm.
So so I don't really spend a lot of time on all that kind of stuff because we have them. And as far as new business is concerned, yeah, um, I've got a junior partner that I work with who I can't say enough good things about Brendan. I mean, he's been extremely impressive. And he does everything that, and he's very coachable, I'll put it that way.
Mhm.
So he spends most of the time on the sales activities for newer business. And then I've got Hakel, who, I mean, there aren't enough good words I can say about her. She's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
She started with me the exact same time that I started with you guys, which is
Yeah.
really cool. Um, so they handle most of it. My time is spent doing basically two things: managing the internal relationships with folks and running meetings. Well, I guess three, and getting familiar with the material that I need to before the meeting is started.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, that's good. And so the reason why I asked, David, is that I feel like a lot of advisors feel there's not enough time in the day to get things done. And one of the things I know you've done is you've organized your time, you've blocked it out, and then more importantly, you've set up how you service and what services you provide your clients, and then you automate that as much as possible, so that your time is effectively just spent with clients that, I mean, you're building the relationship further or you're bringing in new assets.
Yeah.
So, and that's all it takes. So one of the things I've found for folks out in the industry, and David, I think you kind of alluded to this too, prior to implementing some of our processes, most advisors have satisfied clients. In fact, the stat I saw the other day is something like 85% of the high net worth investors are satisfied with their current advisor. I think it can go a little higher than that if you include satisfied, very satisfied. I think it's a little bit of a higher percentage, but that's still just satisfied,
Yeah.
right? And that's not a word that I think describes you, David, and it's not a word that should describe our clients either, right?
Yeah.
We want clients that are engaged. And so, what are some of the things that you do to engage your clients?
Well, when I first started, nothing. I mean, I didn't know, right? I was a rookie and I
Yeah.
was trying to build. And I would argue that I really didn't do much of anything until, the last 2 years. I mean, I did some, but it wasn't, and just because I thought it was something I was supposed to do. but it wasn't anything like we do now. So I had mentioned a couple of things like the constant communication is big. And for folks that are not local, I'll go out and in many cases I'll fly out and see them once a year. We'll do video calls other times and things like that. And I think the most exciting thing for me has been just the fact that I've got several clients who they moved to me because they just never heard from their previous person, and they said to me, you know what, Dave, if you can keep me in communication and talk with me, I will be thrilled, because that's how poor the service was previously. Now, obviously, that's not all I do, because that would just be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'll take folks out to lunch, to dinner. We'll spend time outside of just talking about work stuff. It's I do a lot of stuff. One of the things that Spencer is now really pushing me for is to do more client event centric things, and for good reason. I get it. I get it. So we started doing some more of those educational events. We started literally just started implementing them in 2023. For those of you who are not on the system or want to get on the system, you cannot do everything at the same time. It won't work. There's too much.
Mhm.
But if you implement things and get used to them and you add as time goes on, you'll actually be able to accomplish most, if not all, the things that you're supposed to be doing. So
Yeah.
that's at least my experience. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, definitely. So there's a whole engagement formula, and a lot of that it does have to do with the communication. And we got a question from James that says, "What value are you providing your clients, and how are you delivering that value?" And I honestly, I think I'll let you answer that question, but I think you've already kind of answered that question in that, one of the biggest complaints that's been in the industry since I've been in there. It's every year they run these surveys, and one of the biggest complaints is poor communication, whether that's lack of communication or it's not specific to them and what they need. Investors want to know that you are treating them as a unique individual and helping them uniquely accomplish their goals. So that is a lot of the value you're providing, is you're solving those needs. I mean, if it was just some of the other things that a lot of advisors hang their hat on, AI kind of is taking that over. So it really matters as far as really knowing your client, what they need and what they want, and communicating with them on those levels. So, but how would you answer that question though?
Let's just start off with a brand new prospect, because that's a different conversation than somebody who's been working with me for years.
Mhm.
Uh, when you start off, and I say that for a reason, when you start off with a brand new prospect, and let's assume it's not somebody who already has trust built in you, because guess what? They We do other channels besides just referrals, right? So if you start out with a brand new prospect and you've got somebody that they've got investments in all these different places and things like that, um, show them that you actually care about what they're doing. Show them, and you can say you're going to do all the stuff, but show them like, hey, here's something that you're doing right now that is not in line what you told me you said you were interested in doing. Because I'll spend an hour and a half in a first meeting, because I want to get as much information as I possibly can, so that in that second meeting I'm talking with them about recommendations.
Mhm.
And I'm able to do that by showing them that yes, we've got strength and backing of the Fidelities of the world and places like that, because of our back office help and everything that they provide us. But they're going to get a personalized, customized approach when working with me, because I'm going to respect the heck out of them. I'm going to respect their assets, and this is not a one sale, I never talk to you again type of relationship. This is I'm not just here to show you one thing. I'm here to make sure that whatever happens in the future, we adjust or make work for you, because that's how a stronger relationship works. You don't get married and then never talk to your spouse ever again.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that truly is the value. And it's what investors are clamoring for. If you look at the surveys of high net worth investors, that is what they're clamoring for. A couple of questions that came in too that I think are related to that. So first off, from John, how much time do you spend on investment research, and do you do your own portfolio management?
It's a mixture. I mean, I don't spend a ton of time on investment research, to be honest with you. I mean, we use a lot of different things depending on what the client needs, right? I mean, we work with managed accounts, we work with brokerage accounts, we worked with, s- well, SMAs separately managed, as well as, okay, we're just covering the trading costs, but we're investing based on the recommendations that we have for you, type of thing.
Mhm.
But I've got a whole team that kind of helps me work with that through, Equitable is the company that I'm aligned with to provide those services. LPL Financial, for those of you who are independent, is who we clear through. So they provide a lot of resources too. So I've got some relationships, but I tell people right up front before we start working together, like I I'm not trading your account daily. Like I can't do that, because if I were to do that, I wouldn't be able to sit in front of you like I am having this conversation with you, because it's just not reasonable. I'm a CFP, not a CFA.
I think it's good. It's a good answer. So, and I've talked to a lot of folks that do, thrive on their money management. That's their big ticket. What I tell those folks is that fantastic, good. You still have to do the things David's talking about. You
Yeah.
still have to have that high touch, high level of relationship with your clients. So great. David has pointed out, look, I can't do the high touch, high relationship marketing myself while having the time to do the necessary due diligence to manage the money. So if you have someone on your team that can direct team in your office that can do it, great. If not, outsource it to somebody else. We have 4 investment rules that we follow or tell our advisors to follow. Not a single one of them is you have to manage your own money. You just have to do it right. Right. And the interesting thing is, if you go out and survey investors again, they all kind of expect advisors to do it the same. Like they all expect advisors are all basically the same on investment management. So yeah, sure, you can distinguish yourself that way, but you're kind of fighting an uphill battle on that. Whereas what investors are saying they want is exactly what David's providing.
And one of the thing too, when you get into a high net worth market, that I found is that investors tend to want something that other people can't get. And when you're able to show them something that, like, for example, they got like an old 401k or something out there that you can do for them that the 401k can't, I mean, that provides value instantly, and they can confirm it, before you even get back together and actually talk about a specific recommendation. Okay, I can do this. Okay, it's not taxable. Okay, okay, I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
So that provides a lot of validity when you speak in that that manner to folks. I
Mhm.
think it's really helpful.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. So a couple of other questions, and that actually brings up one too, that an answer sort of to that question, and that is that the question was, do you have a minimum, and if so, what is that minimum?
So I don't. I don't. That said, one of the things that I learned from you guys is that you shouldn't just, well, I heard the story the one time about the guy who fired a client and was in the grocery store, and one of the friends heard about it, and it was a smaller town, and apparently it was just a bad situation because it was such a close knit environment and community.
Mhm.
So I never want to be in that situation. When I heard that, I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing is, depending on, like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, it's hard for me to validate spending a lot of time on a potential account that's, under $500,000 as an example, right? But when you get to a point where, you've got a team around you, especially like I got a younger advisor that I work directly with for almost all new business. Like, when he's going to be building and eventually being his own senior person, he's going to have some folks help him with some of the smaller accounts, or things like that. It's the same concept. So, um, I'm able to leverage some other folks on my team to allow us to take on whatever we need to take on. And if it's not something that I can validate my time with based on what I should be doing over the course of a day, then I'll let somebody else on the team handle it, should the capacity be there. But we're not just going to be opening up accounts with, you know, under 10 grand with it all day long. Like
Yeah.
that's not the model.
Oh, totally. Well, and that is something we've always preached is that you never fire a client because of their amount of assets, right?
Yeah.
You can fire them if they're a jerk. You can fire them if they refuse to talk to you or do anything you say. But other than that, you keep your clients,
And I
right?
have done that.
Um,
I have done that based on y'all's advice. And oh my gosh, what a good choice. Anyway, keep going.
yeah, no, that's good. No, I agree. It's just we did the same thing in my office. So then the other side of it is that yeah, you should target a certain type of client.
Yeah.
And I do have folks that do set minimums. And what I tell them is look, like you need to master the I specialize in or we specialize in script. And basically it is that, look, we specialize in helping folks that have the complexities that come with over $1 million in investable assets or whatever your number is, right? And that specialty script just lets them know, look, like there's certain complexities that happen at this level, and those complexities are what I specialize in. But again, if you have your top client is referring you junior, do you say no? And that's really what you have to decide as an advisor. Um, if what I will tell you is very much like David, like you've done, if you've set up the right systems and processes, your time is not being spent at all with those, $10,000, $20,000 accounts.
That's right. Well, the other thing is too, like you get, and this is to me like this is the most meaningful referral that you could possibly get, but it's not big, is when a parent sends their child to you.
Oh yeah.
To me, they trust you through and through.
Mhm.
And to the point, like I got two kids, I got a soon to be 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I just think about how my love for them has developed over time and how much stronger it is today than when it was years ago. And that somehow gets stronger every day. Um, for another parent to refer me to their child is something that is very, very personal, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And if that child has 40 grand and the parent has 2 million bucks, right? That 40 grand account is 100% every single solitary time worth the value because of two reasons. The first one is that it means a lot to that big client that you got.
Mhm.
But secondly, guess who's probably getting that 2 million down the road,
Yeah.
which is another piece of what you guys talk about. So anyway,
100%. No. Yeah, it is. If you're doing your job, that there should be a good portion of that 2 million left by the time that young kid inherits, right? So no, 100% agree with you there. And we have a family financial advisor strategy to make sure you're getting that multi generations. And in fact, Michael jumped in the chat and said 100% agrees. Those are the best referrals.
yeah.
You got to take care of them. So this question, I think you've already answered, but just to be, explicit in this, is your business more insurance than investment management, or are you running portfolios of money managers?
When I started, it was mostly insurance.
Mhm.
But we're rewinding the clock 10 years ago or plus. Uh,
Mhm.
I with a background in or at Smith Barney, which Morgan Stanley, um, their business model was mostly money management, and so that's what I wanted to do. And also, I wanted to build my business to the point where it was consistent income, consistent, you know, top producer type status. Like and you could build that as large as you want under the money management fee based system or fee only system, however you want to do it. So in
Mhm.
that regard, so I knew that that was the potential. So I was like, you know what, I know it's going to be a lot of work, but I'll do it anyway. So yes, I've got some insurance things on there. I can tell you right now that is not what I'm really good at. But it is something that I have the capability of doing, and most of our business comes from the investment management side of things.
Yeah. Good. Awesome. So let's move on to the next topic, which is most of the questions I'm getting in chat now. And let's move on to seminars, right? And then we'll touch cold calling after that. So seminars are a fun, interesting way of marketing, right? And you have to get everything exactly right in order for it to work. So one of the questions we had earlier that I think got answered on the Q&A was, let's kind of walk through it. But who promotes it? How is it being promoted? What's your seminar topic? And then let's talk through like what we do at the seminar and what we do after the seminar to be getting the appointments and other things that you're doing.
All right. So I mentioned earlier, we use a service called Leading Response. And what they are is a financial advisor marketing service. And they send out based on local areas, demographics that they have. When I say demographics, I'm talking about like investable assets and stuff like that, the information that they would have based on, and they have a whole formula for how they determine what that is and house values and all of that kind of stuff. So they send
And
out,
they're one of the more accurate ones, just to throw that in there. I've seen a lot of different services, but everybody that uses Leading Response, if they say it's 250 plus people that are showing up at your seminar are that, right?
they're very good about it. So we use Leading Response. Now what they provide are all the things before we get involved, to get to that night. So basically, or those nights. So basically what they do is they draft the invitation. They send it to us for compliance approval. We then send it back with the required disclosures, et cetera, on there. They then mail it out. And these are just, again, they run by where we want the invitations to go, the zip codes, all that kind of stuff. And they actually have a service where people can call to reserve a spot or go online to register for their spot. So that's stuff that we pay them to do. Now, from there, we will then, with the information from people that have signed up, we got to confirm them a couple of days in advance of this event because they're getting confirmations and all this stuff leading up to it, plus the invitation, everything. So by the time that they get to that event, the people that are showing up have had 3 to 4 touches from us, which is really cool because the more touches you have with somebody, especially somebody that doesn't know you, the more credibility you start to gain, which is extremely cool.
And it makes the presentation that much better too. I've seen
Oh
people
yeah.
done it all the ways, but like the people that show up your event, they almost feel like they know you, right?
Oh, it's awesome. Like they'll come in and like, oh, David, yeah, I saw your picture. That's so good to see you. I'm like, nice to meet you. It's like it's all. And the other thing is too with seminars, you're buying them dinner. We go to Ruth's Chris for our seminars.
Yeah.
We buy them dinner. I mean, when you think about, there's this guy in our office named JT, and we have this saying that we go around like hooping and hollering every once in a while, and the saying is, "You take care of your clients, they will take care of you." It's like so funny because it's so true. And the
Yeah.
reason why I'm bringing that up is because it works the same way in any other relationship you have or prospects that you have, because people want to help people that have helped them. I'm buying these people a really nice dinner.
Yeah.
Think about that. That instantly mean in a nice place, well established, and they instantly think this guy might have something to say to me, type of thing. Because that's a credible dip. I mean, geez. Anyway, so we go through the presentation and everything. The topics that I stick to for the most part, is taxes, retirement, Social Security. And I just use those buzzwords. And I use that because that's what we found, in, at least in our area, that most people are attracted to. We saw response rates go from 0.5, 0.6% on all these other topic titles and everything up to like double. It was crazy when we did that. So we're like, all right, we'll stick to that. And so we do these events once a month, is what we do.
So it's 2 dinners a month, right? That just want to make sure we highlight that.
Yeah. So we've been generally doing like a Tuesday and a Thursday, and you have to vary depending on where during the month you're going to do it, type of thing. Because a lot of people, to your point, they might not be able to make one night, but they can make another type of thing. And that's really neat. We've had people that have said, "Oh, I can't make it on Tuesday," but we've still had a couple of availability seats for Thursday. And so what Brendan will do is he'll call them up and he'll be like, "Hey, we got the seat on Thursday. I know you said you can't make it Tuesday. Do you want to come?" And they're like, "Well, yeah." So we've been able to get people that otherwise wouldn't have been able to come just because of the 2-night event.
Yeah. Well, and just to come to a couple of things, there's several questions on this. So as far as topics go, you gave 3 of the big 4. So those 3 are the ones that are working in your area. For other areas, the big 4 are taxes, Social Security, retirement, specifically kind of a focus on the income portion of retirement, and then estate planning. Those are the big four that pretty much always draw. Now, I have seen lately adding the word inflation into titles and bullet points does help and bring a draw in. But those, and when the market's going through extreme volatility, those are the times when, if you're going to talk about, investment basics and or market, management, however you want to discuss it, that's when it can work. But it's not one of those consistent performers. So, but those four are the consistent performers everywhere. A couple of other things on titles. We have a lot of documentation on headlines. There's, again, as a plug, in our document, if you stay to the end and answer the questionnaire, in the goodie bag, there is the document, the Seminar Success Zone. Part of that is the title, and it'll talk about headlines and the importance of it. What's fascinating to me is putting a number in the headline always increases results, and odd over even, which is another interesting thing. So rather than 4, do 5, right? So that being said, that's key topics, which were several of the questions that we had in there. And then let's talk about the costs a little bit, because that's always a concern for folks, especially when dinner's involved. How much, if you don't mind sharing, how much does it cost per seminar with leading response, the dinner, and then do you have wholesaler support to help cover that, or are you covering it all yourself?
With the invitations, let's start there. So if you were just to do that yourself, because these are mailers, most of these people, if you send an invitation out via email, it could go to spam, it could go to something they might not see, it type of thing. This is why we do the monthly drip, right?
Mhm.
So so they're mailers that you send out to invite these folks to dinner. That comes with a cost. Leading response is able to give us a discount because we are BGM associated. So that's the first really cool thing. The second thing about it is that, you're sending out, let's say you're sending out 5,000 mailers, which is very common for what we're doing. Up to 7,500 is what they generally recommend, depending on how you're going about it. But 5,000 mailers might cost us $4,300, and they pay for everything to cover that. When I say everything, I mean for the ink to print, they pay for the envelopes, they pay for the stencil. I mean, just the way it looks, like they draft it and send it to us. Hey, do you like this type of thing? So they do all of that stuff, and it is 75 cents per mailer when you think about it from that perspective, roughly 70 cents a mailer. And if you do it yourself, I don't think you can beat that price. So that was the first thing. And you have to send that enough to get enough people. You can expect to see, according to statistics, about a 1% response rate, which is why the amount of mailers has to be so high.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And then dinners. I mean, it really just depends. We've tried a couple different venues. Roost Chris is going to be more expensive, but it's reasonable to believe for food costs, you're looking at maybe $70 a head. And what we've done is, for alcohol, we have capped it to 2 drinks per person.
Yeah.
Early on, we were not as good as we are now with figuring out what to do, and we had some people try to take advantage, and as such, and there wasn't as great a communication as we should have had, because we were newer at it, with the restaurant itself. So
Mhm.
you have to add on the cost of wine or beer or whatever. We do not serve or offer liquor drinks or anything like that. If they want to do that, they can buy it on their own dime, and we let the serving staff know very clearly what the situation is.
Yeah.
And so the other thing with the seminars is, don't go to a place that you can't have open communication with ongoing about the event. That's an extremely important thing, because they do everything that I ask them to do. Like, I asked them, we hear the analogy, hey, jump, how high? I mean, that's what they do for us.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So they'll do anything to accommodate, because they want the business.
Mhm.
And so we'll do that with Ruth Chris, and we had a couple other local places that we've done as well. But Ruth Chris tends to get a really good response rate.
Yeah.
And again, 65, $70, $70 to $140 a head, I think is very realistic when you think about costs. But
Yeah.
I will encourage you to not view it as just a cost. Because if you do that, then you're not going to be, or you're going to have buyer's remorse. You're going to be annoyed with it. Um, I heard one of these other seminars from a guy, I think he's in the Outer Banks or something like that, or Virginia Beach rather, Virginia Beach. And he he does a lot of seminars, and his whole thing was, look, you bring in 1 million in assets under management, you charge a 1% fee on that thing, you're paying for a seminar, once a month, and that's just one client.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
we
you're going to get that fee every year.
well, that's what I'm saying. That's what
Yeah.
so eventually, and the John Halterman.
Mhm.
uh, So he's incredible from the stuff that I've seen. He's in West Virginia. He doesn't even have a big population around him,
Yeah.
but yet he's bringing in a crazy amount of assets all the time from
Yeah.
these speaking events and whatnot. And he said it himself on one of these seminars. He said, which is or webinars, which is so true. He says, "Oh, I don't view it as costing anything." He said, "Because I've already replaced it, and now we're just building from the fixed expense that we already have." And
Mhm.
I'm like, you know what? That's the place where I want to get to, because if I can get to that, that's a home run.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, and do you use any wholesalers? Do you have wholesalers help cover the cost, or do you cover it?
Just started to talk to him, yes, because
Okay.
it's so expensive. Like,
It is.
so
It
we,
is very
yeah,
expensive.
it's extremely
And
expensive.
if you, the way I look at that is, I figure, look, your investors are paying fees. Those fees go to pay for, go to those companies. If the company is willing to give some of that back by way of entertainment to your clients and education to your prospects, then, why not partake of it? The only thing I would say is, to the question that was asked, is as much as you possibly can, they do not speak. If they do speak,
Yes,
it's
correct.
at the very end, as a way to maybe answer a question or two, if there are any. Um, because the key, and this is for everybody listening, if you're in a partnership or anything like that, it's one speaker per event. The more speakers you have, the lower the appointment ratio we've seen. We had a group that was 3 partners, and they figured, well, we've got an hour, we'll each take 30, or 20 minutes or something like that. No, that's not how that works. You have one speaker at the event, and I believe that's what you're doing, David. Uh,
Yes, it is.
and so, if you are gonna, the agreement with the wholesalers, if they're gonna be willing to pitch in, I mean, you'll use their services and everything else, they'll get the business, but they need to, if they have to check a box to say they gave a presentation, very end, after you've made your pitch to fill out the report cards, introduce them as a specialist that's a resource to you. They're there to answer questions, and they can give a brief presentation on who they are and what their company does. But that's like after you present the report cards. That's where I'd put them. Um, and then there's a couple of other questions here too that I want to make sure that we get to, David, and that we answer. And on these seminars, first off, you do the business that you're getting off of seminars. When people are setting the appointments, that's going into managed money, fee-based business, correct?
Yeah.
Perfect. So that answers that question. And then let's talk briefly about this, because when we're setting up these appointments, well, just to throw out there too, for those that were asking cost, typically from a seminar, we see the cost per new account is between 1,500 to 2,500, depending upon where you're at in the country and the price of dinner and all, per head. Which, again, to your point, if I'm opening up a $500,000 account, I've more than made up for that, and I, moving on, right? I'm good, and every year thereafter I'll be making it, which is why John Halterman, who you mentioned, has that viewpoint.
Yeah, I mean that's the way I'm viewing it is, like, we got to the point where we could start affording these things, right? Because they're not inexpensive.
Yeah, no.
You got to be able to afford them to get started on it, right?
Mhm.
So we got to that point. Now, to be fair, there were definitely some early months where credit cards were used. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And we got some benefit there from the credit card companies. But the point I'm trying to make is that if you start spending the money on these things, now I hit the point where I'm like, okay, so now my goal that I need to hit on a marketing perspective is to get cash flow comfortable where I was before we started the seminars, so that eventually when I don't do seminars personally in the future, that that's an expense that I get back type
Yeah,
of thing. Because the new clients and everything that we've got, like they will eventually pay for it. And then once you stop doing whatever particular thing, if you want to start transitioning out of the business or whatnot, or reducing your time, in those areas, like you said, work half the time or double, um, then that's just icing on the cake.
totally. 100%. So let's go through some of the other numbers with your seminars. So first off, as far as so number of percentage of households that attend your seminar, what percentage of them are requesting or coming for an appointment or asking for an appointment?
So on average, we're scheduling about 60 to 65% of people that have shown
Right.
up to actually come in and meet with us.
Yeah, so, and for those that are listening, so we usually expect 50% or more. The top teams are getting that 60 to 70% range. Um, and how would you say, what would you attribute to that appointment request ratio? What are you doing in your seminars to get that?
Well, I think part of it is I try to get people smiling during the thing, and you
Mhm.
also you want to give them a good dinner, right? You don't want to take them to a Taco Bell. You know what I'm saying? Like, so but to that point, um, you know, you treat them well. You're very like you try to be engaging throughout the entire seminar. Uh,
Mhm.
answer questions. We hold questions till the end is just how we do it.
Mhm.
You send them out stuff. We're calling. If we're not scheduling a meeting as they're walking out the door, which we do, we are also following up with them the next day, first thing in the morning for folks who say I want to be contacted in the morning. That evening rolls around, we start, reaching out to them 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon type thing. So
Yeah,
there's no delay whatsoever is the point.
it's immediate follow-up. Yeah. And I would imagine during the seminar, you're promoting the appointment multiple times.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. When we get together,
Mhm.
when we talk about this together, like constantly
Yeah.
throughout the whole thing. Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you have a report card, I would imagine also that gives them the opportunity to request.
Oh, the report card itself actually, it'll kind of ask for some feedback. It'll
Mhm.
say for future events, what are the topics that you would like to see? And
Yeah.
we check boxes they can use. And then there's what time is the best time for us to contact you. We even have on there, if there's somebody else that you think would find value in meeting with us, put their name and information here if you're willing to do that type of thing.
Yeah.
So absolutely 100%. And then we'll send them the whole presentation with some additional information, things like that, with all the required disclosures when they hand in the card, so that they're walking away with something in their hand,
Mhm.
um, knowing full well that they're giving us some feedback and that information too.
So and then are you presenting? Are you giving your presentation while they eat, before they eat, after they eat?
Oh, definitely not while they're eating.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. We The way that we do it is, our events generally start at 6:30. I want dinner on the table and served by 10 after 7. Now it's a bit ambitious sometimes because the restaurants can get,
Mhm.
but I still want that. Most of the time it's between like 7:15, 7:25 when they have dinner on the table. What we do is we let the servers come in, and we've instructed them of this to help handle all that stuff. So for the first hour and a half, hour 15, no, not an hour and a half. I want to be presenting by like 7:30, 7:45. So about
Mhm.
an hour after they get there. Um, I instruct the servers to have tables bussed, coffees delivered, etc. And once they do that, desserts delivered as well. I'll let them eat the dessert while we're presenting, but I won't, because I don't want them to wait forever and a half to hear the information. But they are not eating dinner or their steaks or whatever that they're eating while I'm doing, because it's way too distraction or too distracted.
Mhm.
There was another presenter in the room next to us the last event, and he was presenting for 2 hours while they were eating everything. You walked by and you could just see in the room people were just like, ugh,
Yeah, that's way too long.
oh. And I'll tell people too. I was like, listen, and I got this from gosh, it's killing me. It's been so long since I saw this presentation. The guy in Virginia Beach, who does the seminars all the time.
Mhm.
But he said on the event that I took note of, he goes, so when I speak, because he does the speaking when he does these things, as he should. He said, when I speak, I'll let them know, like, hey, I got 2 kids at home. I can't keep you here all night.
Mhm.
So I actually took that from him, and I'll say as soon as I started, like, I promise I'm not going to keep you all night. How was the food? I usually get some cheers and things like that, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, I get an 8-year-old or soon to be 8-year-old and a 5-year-old at home. I want to be able to go see them before they fall asleep. So I promise I won't keep you late. And half the time that gives me some applause too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But then I'll go through the presentation, and the presentation really takes me, depending on how the flow is, anywhere from a little after 20 minutes to just below 30.
Yeah.
And then we'll have and I'll tell them we're going to have a brief 10-minute question and answer session at the end. But then I'll have Brendan cut me off at 10 minutes if there's a lot of questions. And he'll say, hey, time's up. We got to go. I'm like, oh, sorry, everybody. Listen, if there's anything I did not get to, we are offering complimentary consultations where we can meet together so that we can go over those questions that you might not have had the chance to get to, because I don't want you walking away feeling like you wanted some information and you didn't get anything, when we can certainly provide that to you at a later time. We're just out of time tonight.
Perfect. Well, so I've got a bunch of other questions, but we are running out of time, and I want to be respectful of your time and everybody else's time. So I apologize. I'm not going to get to all of the questions that are out there. I do want to touch on it since it's the third, big avenue. What script are you using for cold calling? Just real quick.
Purely as a means to schedule a meeting. And it's to say like, so this is Matt Hicken calling from Equitable to set up a 15-minute phone conversation to see how we can be a resource in addition to your benefits that you're getting through work.
Mhm.
And it's true, because we basically have clients in almost every single company that they're calling, because they're only like the big ones on the Fortune 500 that we're reaching out to, or some of the big law firms that are out there. But it'll be essentially say, well, you know, we've worked with folks at your firm, or we work with folks at your firm as well. So we know how the benefit situation works, and we can speak to it and make sure that whatever it is that you're doing externally can align with that type of thing.
Perfect. And I know we could go into a lot of that. We could talk for hours on the client marketing that you're doing. We could talk for a lot longer on seminars and everything related to that. But that being said, I do want to make sure that you get the chance to get the goodie bag. Like I said, this is of high value, so I'm going to share that. We'll also put a link to it in the chat, so you can just click on the link or copy and paste it. But here's the thing, that goodie bag, that item in there. So if you'll answer the few questions, then you'll get the download of the seminar success zone, which walks through each layer of the seminar to make sure that you're hitting the numbers like David is, to bring in the numbers that you are. One of the things we didn't get a chance to get to is just, again, your sales process, that sales cycle. That's one of the things that you and I touched base on. You had everything in place. You did all the work, but you and I touched base on, we made some nudges, some suggestions here and there. I get to work with some of the top advisors across the country and listen to their processes. Made a couple of suggestions to you that helped improve the sales with those suggestions, plus other things you were doing and already did. That's a class that I teach, is actually, it would call it Asset Accelerator, where we go through everything that's needed to really increase the amount of closing that you have. And that's everything from developing the leads all the way down to what does it take to actually get them to say yes and move forward with you. So that class I teach, we'll put a link to that also in the chat to go to that class if you want to take a look at that. And then again, the other thing that we can do is we have coaches here, Spencer, myself, that would be willing to travel to your office. If you've never run seminars or haven't run them in a long time, what we can do is come to your office, work with you before, come to attend your seminar, and then help you make sure that everything from before to after is done exactly as it should be to get the numbers that David's talking about. But again, please, in the chat, go in there, copy paste that, or even on the screen, type this into your browser. and go get that seminar success zone document. It's going to be extremely important. So David, we're at the hour. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for presenting and being willing to share all of this.
Like I said when we first started, I just am blown away that you guys thought of me and grateful and all this other kind of stuff. It means a lot that what you've been able to help us with, and truth be told, help my clients feel better about working with me. So I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, David. Appreciate it. Always love having a good guy like you be successful. So thanks, everybody. Wish you all the best day.
Bye, guys.